how these panels are, so we kind of are going backwards in time, right? We started with forest products and like the end result of, and so it's up to the women at this table to manage our forest in a way that we get to the wood product side of things. So that's really exciting. I thought that I was a pretty dang good moderator until Michelle was up here. I was like, holy moly, I was taking notes, like what a great moderator she is. So I really did like the idea of self-introductions. I will introduce you all if you would like, but instead I thought if you're comfortable with it, put them on the spot. Nobody introduces themselves better than themselves. So we'll go right down the line. Nikki, do you want to go for it?
I will. All right. Can folks hear me okay? It's always hard to tell from up here. Thanks. So my name is Nikki Swanson. I work for the Forest Service. I'm a district ranger on the Sweet Home Ranger District. And for folks who don't know what a district ranger is or what a district ranger does, I'm basically the lead for that bit of land there. So we manage about 200,000 acres, basically an hour east of here. So it's an exciting job and I absolutely love it. I started out, I got my biology degree with a minor in English at the University of Oregon. Got my first summer job with the Department of Fish and Wildlife at doing stream surveys. How I got that job was really interesting. The lead didn't really want to hire a girl, and definitely not a girl from a liberal arts college. They usually got their candidates. They were usually strong men from ag colleges. But then he found out I ran track for the U of O, and he really liked track. And come to find out, he had cheered me on before. So then I was in because I had ran track. So you never really know where your break's gonna come, right? Do the things you're passionate about. And the universe has this incredible way of making these connections and giving you these opportunities. You just have to see them. And so follow those things you're passionate about. Who knows where they'll lead. My next job was with the Forest Service doing stream surveys. The job interview was very similar. I walk into the job interview and my new boss looks at me and he's like, "You're kind of small. I imagined that you would be bigger." And I'm just like, okay. And he's like, "I don't think you can do this job. This job requires hiking in streams for miles a day. And you have to carry a backpack. And that backpack, that electroshocker, that weighs 50 pounds. I don't think you can do that." And then he's flipping through my resume and he's like, "Oh, but you're a farm girl. Farm girls are pretty strong." And I haven't even got to say a word yet, right? And so anyways, I convinced him that I had done, carried that backpack before and I could do it again. And I was indeed a farm girl. So yeah, so then I got that job. And then I just planned to work for the Forest Service for a few years. You got to start somewhere, right? I ended up loving it. Came here to Oregon State University and got my master's in fisheries and was a fisheries biologist for 25 years before becoming a district ranger 5 years ago. So there's my story.
Yeah.
So my name is Jennifer Weikel, and I'm currently a wildlife biologist for Oregon Department of Forestry in our Forest Resources program, which used to be private forest program. And that's mostly what I have been working on for, it's almost 20 years working with private landowners in forestry issues. I got my start actually with the Forest Service. One of my very first jobs was doing spotted owl surveys. Like many biologists, we get our start doing field work with owls. And that was down in Gold Beach. And I spent quite a bit of time here at College of Forestry. Well, first of all, let me step back. I got my bachelor's degree in wildlife at Humboldt State, and then came north and ended up at College of Forestry and got a degree in forest science. When I came here, I had the choice of pursuing my master's degree either in forestry or wildlife, and I really wanted to diversify my background. And it was great. I've been doing wildlife and forestry work for pretty much my whole career, and it's been incredibly rewarding. Let's see what else. I also did some work in monitoring and just field studies and science. I have a strong science background at both the OSU and Oregon Department of Forestry. And then more recently, a lot of my work is outreach and education with small landowners. I am a master woodland manager through the extension program with Polk County. I think that's it. I'll stop there.
That's good.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Beathe. I am a forester at Starker Forest here in Corvallis. I've been working at Starker Forest for about 24 years. When I was a student at OSU, I studied and graduated with a forest engineering degree. My summer internships were incredibly formative in helping me choose my career path. I worked on a timber crew on the Truckee Ranger District on the Tahoe National Forest for one summer, in which we got pulled onto a fire crew. And so I got some wonderful experience working on federal lands. And I worked for International Paper Company another summer here in Oregon, learning how to design and build roads. And then I started working at Starker Forest when the Oregon Plan was being implemented in the 1990s to inventory our road system and come up with a plan for replacing culverts to pass fish. So these days I do a variety of different things in my job. I still manage bridge and culvert projects, but I work with our easements and right of ways and do some outreach and education as well.
Good morning. My name is Jill Bell, and I am currently an area manager for Weyerhaeuser Company. I graduated from Oregon State University here in 2003 with a degree in forest engineering, and I'm honored to be sitting next to Jennifer today, as she was one of the few forest engineers, female forest engineers, that I knew when I started in college in 1999. Jennifer and Jenny Cornell were the two that stood out to me that I always looked up to. So I'm honored to be sitting next to Jennifer today. My background, forest engineering. I started with Weyerhaeuser in 2003 in a field engineer position. And I spent about the first 12 years of my career doing engineering work, harvest unit layout, road layout, construction supervision, rock pits, everything that goes along with roads, including a little bit of culvert work, no bridge work specifically for me. As I was developing in my career, I knew I wanted to go into harvesting. And so that was what I was chasing at that point in time. And I tell you, it's very difficult to be a woman going into harvest operations. You want to be in forestry, you want to be in engineering or some other aspect, great. But as soon as you say, I want to be a harvest manager, I want to deal with logging, oh, you're not quite qualified for that when your resume looks no different than your male counterparts. But it was what I wanted and what I was committed to. And I luckily had a boss that was very supportive of me and an advocate for me. I did end up as a contract logging supervisor within Weyerhaeuser Columbia, a different subsidiary, for a couple of years. From that experience, I had an opportunity to grow and develop and gain some recognition for my skills and abilities, and did end up with an opportunity for a promotion in 2017 to be an area manager, which was a very big deal for a woman at the time. Weyerhaeuser was going through a restructure, and we were placing 16 different area managers, and we thought there was a strong likelihood, my husband and I thought there was a strong likelihood I might be one of the only women getting one of these offers. So despite the fact that it has taken me away from home, I stay away from home during the week, I did accept that job offer to be an area manager. And I'm now a people manager, a tree farm manager, and am working with our salaried staff. I supervise our salaried staff. And where I am today, we also have company logging operations, company crews. While I don't directly supervise them myself, I supervise their supervisors. My career has also been fairly wide and busy with a lot of outreach and advocacy work. Growing up, I did a lot of different outreach, different stuff. So as I went into my own career, I've been active with Oregon Women in Timber more recent years, Council on Forest Engineering, you name it. I participated on a lot of different outreach groups, and I thoroughly enjoy getting the opportunity to come back to OSU annually to speak to the FE 101 entry level to forest engineering class. Thank you.
Wow. It's so cool to be around in the audience and up here around so many strong, powerful women. Like I just get so much energy from it. I don't, I think the common thread is that we're all used to being in a room where you're the only woman. I'm so used to that. And so it's just looking around, it's like, woohoo, this is so great. And to have all this powerhouse next to me is amazing. So the next part of our session here is they've all prepared just some comments with about their story and how they got to where they are today. And so we're gonna do that. And I don't want to put any pressure. Do we want to go right back down the line the same way we did before? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, let's do it. So Nikki's gonna go first.
I think I already answered the first part of the question in my intro. I kind of went a little deep, I think, but it's all
No,
good.
no, I think it's good. Yeah.
What I really wanted to talk about was what's exciting about the future of the Forest Service and for women in the Forest Service in particular. So, when I started, when I was at graduate school here at OSU, I was often the only woman in any of my fisheries classes. And so I got kind of used to not having other women, right? Like it became almost like the norm. And so as I entered the Forest Service, that just kind of continued. And then over time, there were more and more women, and that was really kind of exciting. And now most of the meetings I go to, it's a pretty even split, which is really, really inspiring. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that the Forest Service has a multiple use mission. And that's one of the things that I find so exciting about the Forest Service is we provide products to the American people, whether it's timber, whether it's mushroom picking, whether it's firewood, and we provide experiences, whether it's recreation, whether you get your spiritual reconnection with nature, through your contact with the forest, whatever it is, whatever you like the forest for, the Forest Service can provide. And it can do all of those things simultaneously, which is, just really amazing to me. And our interdisciplinary teams, the biologists and the engineers and our silviculturists and recreation folks and all of the different ologists that we have all work together. And my team in particular on the Sweet Home Ranger District is so amazing. There is a very, very, it's a very diverse group of people in every way, gender, rich, poor, where you came from, different cultural beliefs and extremely different values, from far right to far left. And sometimes that can create a lot of dilemmas. It can create a lot of difficulties, right? Because you've got this wide range of experiences on this one team. And yet if our job as Forest Service employees is to manage these forests for the American public also has this wide and diverse range of views. And so having the opportunity to look for ways to get to yes, how do you meet all the interests? How do you ensure that that all the voices are in the room, that all the ideas are present? And when you can do that, you can come up with the best ideas that no one group alone could come up with. And so what we're seeing in the Forest Service is a shift from sort of that chain of command, that that line from the top and on down, to collaboration, to working with communities, to respecting diverse views, to being transparent. And it's just a really exciting time to be part of the Forest Service. And it's been an amazing journey to this point, and I look forward to watching it develop into the future as well.
Oh, thank you. Jennifer, why don't you tell us about your story?
My story.
Yeah.
Well, I have some notes because I'm a nervous sort of speaker, but I just wanted to follow up and say, I have kind of the same experience that I've always been. I've been working in forestry field and biology field for forever, and I am used to being one of the only women in the room, and I've become very used to it. So this is great to be here in this environment. I've been very blessed in my career that the men that I've worked with and that have been my mentors have been wonderful and great mentors, and very open to, having me on board and, listening to what I had to say and giving me a voice. So what I wanted to talk about, not really so much my story, but what I'm excited about for the future. And I'm going to bring this back around to, why I think it matters for women. But what I'm excited about is just collaboration. As I mentioned, I'm a wildlife biologist. I'm not a forester. And so I'm often in this world where there's a lot of conflict. I also, in my current position, do a lot of policy work. And the work that I love is getting out in the woods and working one-on-one with foresters. And with that, I find that we can one-on-one, find the win-wins and collaborate. And it's great. I love it. It's very rewarding. The policy work is so hard.
Mhm.
It's so hard because there's always conflict, and each side wants to, their own say, and it's battles, and it's hard to find the win-win. So the reason I'm excited, and I'm going to hopefully not delve into, get us off on a politics spin here, but, you know, recently we've had a kind of a shift, I think, in the forestry and conservation world. And what I'm referring to is the collaboration that happened over this last winter between timber industry groups and conservation environmental groups, that they actually came to the table through mediated sessions with the governor to try to come up with a win-win for how to move forward on forest policy in Oregon, specific with our Forest Practices Act laws, which is a lot of what I do for my job. And I've been at this for quite a while now in my job of seeing the conflict and seen battles happen either through the ballot box of everybody trying to get their side and kind of force their way on other people, or through lawsuits. You know, timber sales, especially with federal agencies, get sued all the time. So I'm excited because I finally feel like I'm seeing something that is positive for people coming to the table together and seeking the win-win and moving forward. And I had nothing to do with any of that. I'm just sort of the recipient of it, because now I get to work on the tail end of that. I'm working on, let me just step back. What happened was the agreements were made. It was codified in statute in the last legislative session. And now my agency is working on rulemaking and trying to work on a habitat conservation plan, which will give private landowners some regulatory assurances and certainty. And that's what I'm working on. And it's very exciting to be working on something that came from collaboration and started there. So that's what I'm excited about. And, you know, thinking back, you know, that's to me is more about being a biologist in a forestry world than being a woman. But I was thinking back to the last Starker lecture, and there was, she made a point about how women are good at finding the win-win. And that's where I think, you know, as my agency is growing and my group is hiring, and I'm seeing more and more people come in to my own group, my own little group that's working together, a lot more women being brought to my agency. I'm super excited about it because I feel like we all work well together, but I feel like women particularly are gifted at trying to find that win-win in the collaboration. So I'll just stop there.
I think the quote that I liked from that last, and I think you can still look up all the lectures if you missed any of them, but that was Edie Stoney Hall. And I think that what I really loved that she said, she was like, what would happen if we put the women in charge? And I just love that, because I'm like, I think you'd find a lot more collaboration is what you'd find, and maybe more of those win-wins. So I totally can agree more. Jennifer.
Okay, Jennifer and I did not speak ahead of time, but I'm going to talk about the same thing with a slightly different twist, I think. When our culverts and bridges meet a standard as described in the upcoming rules from the Private Forest Accord, I think all private forestry companies will be really proud about that. But this isn't the first rodeo. In the 1990s, we agreed to voluntarily take part in the Oregon Plan for Salmon and Watersheds. That's how I got my job at Starker Forest, to inventory our road system and then develop a plan to replace our culverts that didn't pass fish and improve drainage to our road systems to keep sediment out of streams. So we've been doing this for a long time already. I can't speak for every landowner, and maybe this is part of how we got to the Private Forest Accord, but for Starker Forest, we took this seriously. So I've managed these road construction projects since 1998. We've replaced over 100 culverts for fish passage, numerous bridges to maintain a sound infrastructure on our landscape. I'm eager for private forestry companies to be able to say, look, we've done everything we know how to do for these fish. We've provided fish passage, we've added logs, we have stream complexity, we have wider stream buffers. We've done what we need to do, while at the same time growing the trees that our society needs and uses. I don't want to end with a mic drop, but I do want to say what I'm not excited about. I'm not excited about the Private Forest Accord in that it will cause people to lose jobs. It will probably cause mills to be closed. It'll be removing fiber that could be harvested on our landscape. And I don't think that's good for Oregon.
And I have some slides. Can we flip through my slides? I just have pictures to share.
Oh, yeah, good. Let me just hand this out to you. I think you get control.
Thank you. probably going to cover some of the similar things they did, but I've got a few pictures to share and tell my story. When I started at Oregon State University in 1999, pursuing my degree in forest engineering, I never once thought what it meant to be a woman entering into the timber industry. I was just excited to be starting my career in the industry in which I grew up in. Being a logger's daughter, I felt welcomed, supported, and empowered throughout my time at the College of Forestry and as I started into my career.
Yeah, no,
On the side.
I think it needs to flip it, turn it on the side of the power button. I'm thinking, sorry, I should have done that for you.
There we go. Let's try that.
There we go. Oh, yeah.
Oh, we went too far.
There we go.
Okay. I'm here before you today as a 19-year Weyerhaeuser employee. I've held the titles of forest engineer, harvest manager, and now currently area manager. But the titles that will always be the most meaningful to me are logger's daughter, mentor, volunteer, and neighbor, as these are the titles that I've had when I've made the most connections and impacted others. I've found being able to connect with people on a personal level to be deeply rewarding, and I truly thrive when I'm able to be part of the communities where I have the privilege of working. It's my opinion that one of the greatest ways women add value to the timber industry is through our ability to connect with others and personalize forestry. Most of my career, I've worked on Weyerhaeuser ownership that's checkerboarded with small private landowners. I've had numerous operations that were literally in people's backyards. One specific one, we were logging trees and having to pull them over with a yarder 30 feet from someone's home. So prior to going into these situations where I'm having to meet with neighbors and having these interactions with them, I always go in prepared for the worst, knowing that people have misconceptions about harvest operations. I've found that spending time with people to hear their concerns and to commit to addressing them always leads to a win-win. I can't tell you how many hours I have spent actually walking other people's property with them because they want to show you what they're doing on their property and how they're managing it. They may not care actually about the upcoming operation that I have, but they want to talk about their property. I've spent numerous hours walking property and listening. I've also spent a lot of time sitting at dining room tables, drinking coffee, looking at maps, and discussing operations and upcoming plans. While I may not change their view of harvest operations or active forest management, I've at least allowed them to be heard and have created trust with them. This results in me being able to have fully explained what my operation is, why it's occurring, benefit to the forest, and then allowing that opportunity to address sustainability, environmental impacts, and how we're taking care of safety within our operations. At the some of my operations, at the end of some of my operations, I have truly developed lifelong friendships with neighbors that I didn't know going into it. I've received numerous hugs, had regular invitations to stop by for fresh baked treats, and I even commissioned a woman to paint a logging mural on a saw blade from my husband's family sawmill. To me, these interactions have promoted change in perception of timber harvest and harvest operations. When you humanize your operation and its benefit to the forest, you gain understanding. I believe that women are uniquely positioned to be more self-aware and empathize with neighbors in these situations. My work through Oregon Women in Timber, also known as OWIT, is another way that I've engaged in outreach. While the name Oregon Women in Timber may be a bit deceiving, as we were not founded by women who work in the woods, we do find today that many of our members are industry professionals. This does allow us to meet other women and facilitates networking with each other, which is a great opportunity similar to what the first panel was talking about. It's truly rare to find an all-female based forestry organization where you can sit, chat, and have that network to support. I truly do love being able to support other women, regardless if it's somebody just entering into their career or if it's somebody who's a seasoned veteran, knowing that the issues we face aren't the same as our male counterparts. This can be as simple as encouraging somebody to apply for that job when they question their qualifications, to having those casual conversations about where to find cork boots and PPE that fit female frames, because we all know it's starting to be more common. PPE work clothes have never been truly designed for women. The connections I've made through Oregon Women in Timber and the friendships I've made, I truly value, and the organization has been very important to me. Circling back to my career and the work I actually do today, there's many things that excite me for the future, such as improvements in technology that are going to improve the ways we go to work, the endless career opportunities right now for people who are entering into the timber industry, and the recognition of our skilled workforce, be it truck drivers, loggers, and mechanics. I'm equally as excited by the number of women entering into forestry, be it foresters, small woodland owners, equipment operators. I love seeing women coming into the industry from all directions. Over the course of my career, I've learned a few things about the value that women do add to forestry that I would like to share. First, as stated earlier, our approach tends to be more collaborative. We seek to find win-win and common solutions. We tend to only operate from a top-down fear-based approach when necessary or needed. Second, female equipment operators and truck drivers tend to be a lot easier on equipment and quicker to ask for a second opinion, which results in less breakdowns and less errors. I've had numerous contractors tell me over and over they value their female employees that are out there in equipment and trucks because they have less maintenance issues, less issues overall. And lastly, women break up the group think decision-making from what has typically been an all male-dominated industry. We find new ways to accomplish objectives. I personally feel very privileged to work for a company who supports their female employees in what have typically been male-dominated roles. And at the end of the day, I'll always be a logger's daughter.
Oh, wow. I love all that. Thank you all for sharing all that. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I've always been welcomed in this industry too. My dad's a forester and my mom's a master woodland manager, and I have a foresters as a brother, and I have 3 older brothers, and I've never really known anything different than to be around men. But I have had a lot of welcoming. But I think it wasn't until I was really finding all my women colleagues that I started really feeling more comfortable with myself and bringing my voice to all the conversations. And I really liked how the last group was talking about mentorship. So I do want to get into that a little bit because it's just, I think, critically important to our career paths. Jennifer Weikel up here is one of mine. I don't know if she even knows that, but I call her all the time for advice still, and really helped me out when I was early on in my career. And I appreciate it. I thank you for that. So let's talk about that. Jill, you were mentioning how important mentors are. Who has influenced you? How did you find your mentors? How'd you make that happen?
Early on in my career, it was more natural. The people I was working with, which have been men over the course of my early career, and that's fine. I've had amazing male mentors, to be honest with you. Some of the early engineers I worked with took me under their wing and taught me everything they knew. And to this day, I really respect and appreciate that. As I've developed in my career and started wanting to do more, I needed to figure out how to be strategic in finding mentors. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is what the difference is between a mentor, an advocate, an ally, a sponsor, right? We have a lot of different terms and how that group of people play out in your life. I have those people, like I stated, a boss who really advocated for me and knew where I wanted to go. And he, in those meetings behind closed doors, when they're deciding where they're placing people have advocated for me, and I truly appreciate that. So recognizing those people in my life, recognizing the mentors that I have had that have been strategic. When I do decide that I want to reach out to somebody as a mentor, or if I'm reaching out to somebody to be a mentor of one of my employees, I generally will state, what the time commitment is. Would you be willing to meet with me for 1 hour once a quarter? Yes, great. Sometimes they'll say, I'd love to meet with you 1 hour once a month, depending on what level somebody is within the company or organization. I try not to ask too much time out of them. They're generally happy to help. The other caveat is always, if this doesn't feel right after the first meeting, let's accept this mentor-mentee relationship might not be the best, and just take that for what it is and move on. And as I've reached out to other people to be mentors for some of my employees, those have been the key conversations I've had, was if this doesn't feel like a good fit, let's not force it. Let's find somebody else to be that mentor. I truly take advantage of those relationships and go into those meetings with specific things to discuss. I'll provide that in advance so they know what it is I want to discuss or what I'm working on. So that's the other thing I'd like to encourage you. If you do have a mentor you're working with, make sure you have that set up that's facilitating your needs and it's not just a candid conversation. I have more casual mentors that I call that it is a more candid conversation. And I also have peer-to-peer mentors. I have a female counterpart in North Carolina that I probably text with daily. It feels like just having that peer-to-peer support is, I don't want to say a mentor-mentee relationship, but it's also added value. So just recognizing that there's the big picture and how you find mentors, sponsors, allies, who they are and what impact they have has been what's been important to me.
Well, for me, my biggest mentor has been my boss, who's been my boss my entire career. But he has always been treated me with respect. He's always been fair, willing to listen, doesn't micromanage the work that I do, and allows me the opportunity to explore some of my own interests within the field of forestry and the work that we do. So I am incredibly thankful for that. In terms of being a mentor, just a couple of weeks ago, I was teaching a forestry station for Greater Albany Public Schools. And as part of my lesson, I was using the OFRI publication, Find Your Path. And if you haven't looked at it, please take a look, because there's great career paths for many people in our sector. And I was asking the students to consider what kind of working environment that they would want to live in, would they want to be inside or outside, or like at a desk, or moving, or using equipment, and just trying to get them to think a little bit about what types of jobs that they would like to do. And one girl said that she wanted to be, flipping through the pages, that she wanted to be vice president of manufacturing. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Like, what is it about that jumps out at you? And she said, well, I like to learn how things work. I like to know how things work. And if you're vice president, you probably make a lot of money. So I like the combination of those two things. So I was really proud of that moment for her. And I didn't know her. And, we know that nearly every C-suite job in private forest sector is held by a man. And it's great when you need to go to the bathroom, because you get some alone time, because there's never a line. But this young lady didn't indicate that she thought that any of these paths were out of reach for her. And so providing opportunities to show young women that they can have an uninhibited path to the careers they seek, I think adds value to our entire profession.
So I was thinking a lot about this and kind of who my mentors were. And, this opportunity to come talk here has led me to reflect a lot. And I think I had two really important mentors when I first came to Oregon. Obviously, I had some early on that helped me get to where I'm at. But one was my advisor in grad school, John Hayes, who was a professor here. And what made him a good mentor was just having that knack of encouraging, not like letting you, like not doing your work for you, but encouraging you and helping you find the right path. And also helping me be brave to like find my voice, because I'm very shy and introverted. So speaking up is hard for me. And then at the same time I came to OSU, I became friends with Joan Hager, who's also a professor here. She works with USGS. And she's just been kind of like somebody I can talk to. And we both are in the field, were in the field of songbird research at the time. And we've been friends ever since. So I don't even know that she knows that I think of her as a mentor, but if she's watching now, she does. So those are my two. And, just having somebody that you can bounce ideas off and then can help guide you on your career path. Thinking about it where I'm at now, I really appreciated the last panel being willing to say that they had just found a mentor or didn't have a mentor, because I think maybe I'm there for like growth, from where I'm at now. So looking for a mentor in leadership. So, yeah, and I don't think I'm really, Fran, I didn't know that you thought of me as a mentor. So I appreciate that, because I don't feel like I mentor anybody. I tend to keep to myself. And of course, COVID, now we've all been working from home. So I'm excited that things are back to normal and I get to interact with my coworkers. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of new people coming on. So I'm excited to work with them, young people too.
And like many of the women who have spoken before me, just so many mentors throughout my career, some of them bosses, some of them men, some of them women, a whole variety of positions. I think right this minute, my peer mentor is probably, my strongest mentor, and we support each other. She's the only other woman ranger on our forest. And so, and we've had a connection our whole careers, and have supported each other along the way. We've known each other for like 20 years now and have both risen from being, ologist. She was a botanist, I was a fisheries biologist, all the way up to this. And to be able to do that on the forest from which you came is really rare. Typically in the Forest Service, you have to move around a fair amount to be able to move up in the organization. And so you either have to move or you have to be really good. And so, we just throughout our careers have really supported each other. And I just, it's so wonderful to just have someone that you can talk to about all of the current things that are going on, people who either know of or who have experienced similar things. And I just encourage people to reach out to whoever that is for you in your life, whether it's a peer, whether it's just someone who holds a position above or below you, but that you're curious about their life or their perspective or how they did something or how they got where they were. It's just so powerful for all of us to just support each other. And as far as how I do that for others, men or women, it doesn't matter to me, is just helping wherever I can and being available. I remember during COVID, I wanted to have parking lot hours because our office wasn't open yet, but we were allowed to drive the vehicles and go to the field. So I started parking lot hours where literally I would just hang out in the parking lot for an hour at the picnic table. And anyone who wandered by, I would just talk to them about whatever it was. And for some of them, for some of the younger seasonals, it was around, just wanting some advice around careers or things like that. And then other people just had questions about why did you make this decision? Or how did you go that way? Why did you do that? And so just always happy and willing to share, whatever that is. And it's only just recently that I have a formal mentorship, through a program. And that's been really fun too. It's the first time I've experienced not having it be, kind of spur of the moment, right? Or organic. It's the first time that there's questions and you talk about these questions and the person's taking a class. And so the questions are really to help them, discover more as they move through their self-discovery and their leadership in this class. But there's a lot of value to that structure. And I think I'll start doing that intentionally now as a result of that.
What program is that?
It's a line officer academy. And so it's for all of the new rangers. So all the new rangers are going through, a training session at the same time together. So it's pretty cool. I wish I was a new ranger. I want to go there.
We do hope that we, through the paths that we're all taking and the things that we've overcome and the thing, blazing the trail for the generations behind us, that there will be programs like that maybe didn't exist for us. I do have more questions to ask my panel, but I thought, you all been really kind audience. There might be some in we do have time. So if someone's got a question they want to ask now, I would definitely open the floor for that. Yeah, go ahead, Jessica.
So I have a question related to sort of the unpaid work that people do. I've kind of figured out what works well for me, what I select to take on. But as a people manager, I'm curious, how do you make sure that the kind of unpaid, non-typical job work gets valued?
Did everyone hear the question in the back too? Oh, yeah. So for the folks, oh boy. So for the folks online, we had a question from the audience and I'll repeat it so that you all can think about how you want to answer it. As you know, in our careers, we have our job descriptions and what we're paid to do. And then there's a whole multitude of other things that we tend to take on also in our jobs. And how do you navigate what you pick and choose for the unpaid work that we do that's also highly valued and important? Did I do that justice? Not really.
Like not only for yourself, but for people.
Yeah, right. For yourself and then also giving that same advice to the people that you manage. Mhm. Who wants to take that first? That's a toughie. Yeah, Jill?
I can make an
Go for
attempt at it.
Yep. It's a good question.
It's a good question, Jessica. I struggle with this. I don't have good work-life balance. And I think anybody who knows that, knows that of me. I have been trying to be more intentional on where I am spending my time and a lot of those other activities. And I think you were kind of getting at other work-related stuff, not volunteer stuff. Is that kind of where you're going with that question? Both?
Some of the gray area between those two.
Mhm.
It's hard. It's really hard. I guess it depends on what's important to you, how many hours you have available. I know people only have so many hours available, and that's completely fine. If I'm sitting talking with one of my employees about that, my comment to them will be, you know, your main work stuff needs to get taken care of first, and whatever other time you have available, or if you want to be putting in more time, that's great. I personally just struggle with it. It's a tough question to answer what that balance looks like. And I think it truly is personal to each individual, right? I am child-free by choice. I have more time and hours available to be picking up stuff. But if I know I have employees that have a family and other stuff going on, I'm making sure that I'm encouraging them to be taking the time that they need with their family, not be at work just to be at work, or because that's been the culture. I've worked in offices where the culture is you're there at 4 a.m. and you don't leave until 4:30 p.m., regardless of what you're doing, right? Is that the most effective use of your time? I know there's been more recent discussions about figuring out how to be more effective by taking things off your plate, taking breaks during the day, and being more intentional with your time and your activities. I don't know if that answers your question at all. I think my answer for you is it's personal, it's hard, and as a people manager, you have to make sure that you're paying attention to your employees. One example here recently, I am making an attempt to, when I'm taking vacation days or days off, I've always responded to emails, answered phone calls and done that. And I am being very intentional right now on not answering emails or phone calls. And this is a change for my employees. And I said to them, I'm trying to set a better example so you guys don't think it's necessary to be constantly working just because I choose to do so. That's okay for me, but I don't want that to be the expectation for other people that work with me or around me. So setting that example, letting people know that it's okay for them to make those decisions, as long as they are getting their core work and their core tasks done. What comes from that after they're done with that and kind of around needs to be specific to them and the time they have.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good point about when you're on vacation. I tend to check my emails and respond. And then I really think about, well, this works fine for me, but then it also gives that perception that other people maybe should be doing that themselves. And I don't have that expectation of them. They're not even people I manage. I manage my dog, and even I have to keep her on a leash or she runs around the office looking for treats. I kind of lost my train of thought there.
We all did. We're all thinking about the Starker dogs now. Has everyone seen that photo?
She's like laying on the couch right now, just wondering when she's going to go for get some exercise. Moving on.
What do you think?
I think, I can't speak to Jessica's question specifically, but I'm really lucky where I work. You know, I think as a young person, it's important to find the right match. You know, I've done, worked at OSU, I did some private consulting work, tried to do what Fran does and kind of work on my own, and then landed at Oregon Department of Forestry. And when you find that match, it's important to find a job and to work where you're comfortable. And the reason why this ties into your question is Department of Forestry really, we have what's called working guidelines, and people really do follow them. And one of them is, kind of the work-life balance. And there's a lot of value held in that. So working for the government, it's a little different situation. And I'm sure our upper management people have a different scenario in that they probably are working and putting in a ton of extra hours and not getting paid for it, although they should. But, when I'm like right now, I'm basically kind of double dutying, working 2 jobs. I brought my laptop because I have to do something else here during the break. But when work happens and when you're working overtime, extra hours, you get comp time. So that's one of the perks of working for a government agency or, someplace that allows for that. So I didn't really answer the question.
I think what I do when, when kind of presented with that choice of, do I do this extra bit or not, right, is I try to be pretty intentional with it. I only have so much time and only have so much energy, right? And so I try to be intentional and I think about how does this meet my short-term and long-term needs or goals, right? And that's what I encourage my employees to do too. Like what's your big picture? Like, does this extra thing, does this help you to get where you want to go? Does this help you to achieve whatever your dream is, either short-term or long-term? And if it fits in there, I'm all in and, and I'll work really hard for that. If I don't see that it really is a fit for me and the job still needs to be done, I'll try to find someone else for who it is a fit for, right? Because if that job needs to get done, best to be done by somebody who's passionate about it or who sees that as, as a pathway for them or an opportunity. So, so that's how I often will do it. If I'm not passionate about it, I'll try to find someone else who is. It's like I was asked to coach soccer, which is really hilarious. I ran fast in a straight line with a mild turn to the left. Don't even ask me to handle a ball, right? Like I just can't even, not enough coordination for that. And so I was asked to coach our daughter's soccer team. I know nothing about sports with balls again. And so, so my greatest accomplishment as the coach of the 4th grade girls soccer team was to find them an actual coach because they were like dads and all the dads were there and they're like, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. And there's these drills. And I'm like, it's a sport with a ball. I have no idea. And so I finally kind of made an arrangement with them. I'm like, look, you probably didn't sign up to be coach because you didn't want to deal with who's bringing snacks and the schedule. How about I deal with all that and you actually coach the kids? And they had a great team and a great time and everybody was happy. So there we are.
They were probably the fastest team while you were coaching. Yeah, very fast.
Yeah, no, they were fast.
I love it. How about another question from the audience? It takes bravery to stand up and ask a question too. I get that. I can ask more if no one else wants to. Just want to give you the opportunity if you want it. Well, I'd like to know more about, so, I think we get told that we're leaders. We're up here, we're leaders. And I always kind of struggle with that. I've never really, I like to be in charge. If maybe that's what that means. But always like to be in charge. Could never tell me what to do. So what has inspired you to become a leader in this field? I'm looking to see who maybe wants to go first. Looks like Jennifer Beathe is going to go first.
I've taken leadership roles throughout my life by just raising my hand and saying yes when somebody's looking for volunteers. I think it starts early. I think that some leadership comes naturally and some of it's learned. In terms of having a successful career while juggling motherhood, personal goals, time with friends, exercising, a energetic 3-year-old chocolate lab, it's just a juggle. And life can be messy. It never stays the same. Every season's changing. So I would just advise folks to hire the help that you need or ask for the help that you need. Whether it's hiring a nanny to avoid extended commute times or endless runny noses. Use a meal service. Choose a life partner who's willing to split school drop-offs, laundry, and childcare for Forester early mornings or occasional late nights, or even those fire all nights. hire a job coach, a career coach, or a counselor who can guide you through those annoying self-assessments, but are important so that you can take an honest look at your strengths and weaknesses, your energizers, your stressors, and your motivators. So when you're supported in the ways that you need to be supported, you can achieve your goals, and you can find out what brings you fulfillment and contentment with yourself, so that you can be successful and happy in your personal and professional life.
You gonna go next, Jill?
I'll go
for it.
next.
Yeah, go for it.
What inspires me to be a leader?
Yeah.
I think I'll echo some of what Jennifer said. I think some of it's an intrinsic desire and has come naturally to me over the course of the years. I was always a leader in my 4-H clubs, my high school forestry club, and the activities that I had participated in. So I think part of it for me is just what does come naturally to me. Maybe growing up from my parents, also just seeing the leadership qualities in them. Today, where I'm at is a leader within Weyerhaeuser's organization. What has truly inspired me has been seeing the growth and the development of the people that I supervise. I sit down with them, depending on where they are in their career, some of them monthly, some of them just every 6 months. We talk regularly. Seeing them grow and develop and being part of that, right? That's exciting to be part of growth and development and somebody else, and to give them those opportunities, or, talk to them about stretch goals or see something in them. I've stated over and over to a couple of my employees over the course of the past few years that I am super excited that they could potentially be my next boss. I would love nothing more than to be part of the career development of somebody who is going to be my next boss. That excites me. I, again, do have natural leadership qualities, but I love seeing the growth in other people. And that's truly what has engaged me in the role I am now, is being able to support those other people in their growth and development.
So I kind of have a counter to what you said, that you have natural leadership abilities. I feel like I'm an accidental leader. I don't even know if that's really a thing, but of course, growing up, I've never been, some people are natural leaders and some people aren't. And I definitely have always been more of a follower. So it's taken time for me to learn leadership skills, and it's just sort of come naturally through experiences I've had through my career. And I think one of the things that I've learned is I kind of lead by listening. When I have to do a lot of problem solving in my work, as I'm a biologist helping foresters and landowners solve problems, where I'm there to provide assistance. And there's really a value in just learning to listen, and to really listen to what the problem is, and what is the situation. And then also just being able to, speak your voice and opinion when needed, but also really working to find the middle ground. I think that that's something that I've done well with, of really listening to what the situation is and finding a solution that's a win-win. And so not everybody's a natural leader. Sometimes it just sort of happens, and that's kind of my story.
Thanks. And for me, I started my career in the early 90s with the Forest Service, and that was the spotted owl era. Super contentious time, a lot of anger, eco-terrorism. My ranger station was burned down, like all sorts of craziness occurred. And so, that really was sort of the thing that pivoted me into wanting to become a leader. I remember, being a pretty low graded fisheries biologist and thinking, where can I make a difference? What is the position in this organization where I can make a difference, and where I can see if there's a way to solve these dilemmas? And they're big dilemmas, don't get me wrong. If I can solve these dilemmas in a more peaceful way, so that we don't have eco-terrorism, so there isn't all this fighting, and so that employees feel safe and are safe. I mean, there were literally times where after the ranger station burned down, where there were very unfriendly people in our parking lot. We were literally hostages in our building. And I thought, what, never again. And I will do whatever I can to get myself in a leadership role so that I have some say and so that I can make sure that people feel safe and are safe. And so that was a big part of it. And then too, just this idea that I had that, you know, a lot of women have touched on it today, that leadership can be more collaborative, right? And, you know, instead of the fighting, instead of taking it